Hello and welcome to another episode of the Topbin90 Podcast. This is episode 6. We're back in the studio after a Charlotte win. It always feels good to come back after a win, right? Today I've got Mr. Brian Maurer, BAM Maurer Media. How are you today?
Doing well, man. A little tired from a long road trip. I was on a road trip while the team has a home stretch, but I mean, I'm feeling good, right?
Yeah, man. When I tell you everybody and their mom asked me about you this weekend, I was like, yeah, I'm like, we're just gonna change the name to Brian90 now. Yeah. And we have a very special guest today with us as well. We've got Mr. Sean Gartley. Sean, how are you today?
Dude, I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, man.
For sure, for sure. I mean, this will be the last episode probably you'll be on before you're married, right?
Definitely.
Nice. Awesome. Sean, for the people that don't know you, maybe kind of give a little bit of background. I know you were part of the Crown Town Syndicates, and before that, there was Mid Street Mafia, and then there was Uptown Ultras.
Uptown Ultras, yeah.
Perfect. So, I mean, you have a history with Charlotte FC, correct?
Yeah, dude. So going back to when before everything had even gotten kicked off, we were having meetings, and we didn't have a group name yet or nothing. We were having meetings with the team about what supporters are going to look like, what groups are going to look like. And I was sitting there with my buddy Lucas, and he was just like, we could make our own group, dude. And so we ended up doing that, and we were there from the beginning. We helped kind of create the rules for supporter section. We weathered a lot of storms throughout that, learning new things every single week, and took some time off this year to kind of just really sit back and enjoy the team, and it's been my favorite season so far.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, I just wanted you to give a little context because you're an OG in the game around here. So I've seen you from the beginning. So I mean, any guest that we bring on, like, we strategically pick who we want here, so we appreciate having you out today. So I want to go over a couple of the topics that we're going to touch on today. Obviously, we're going to recap Charlotte FC versus Toronto, that game, wild game. We were asking for goals and we got them, right? So that. Also, I want to see what you guys think of how long we can keep this unbeaten streak. I mean, 14 games unbeaten so far at home. That dates back to last season. Another question, who will have more of an impact, Liel Abada or Djibril Diani this season? We'll touch also on what's going on with the Charlotte FC supporters after Saturday. How many points can we pick up in the next 5 games as well? We'll preview Minnesota. We've got 2 subscriber questions as well. One of them is, do we think Kerwin and Abada getting goals takes pressure off or adds to Enzo? The second question from John is chance creation still an issue despite the 3 goals that we scored this weekend? So let's get into it. Charlotte versus Toronto this weekend. Goals from Vargas, Abada, and Ajimang secured a 3-2 win for Charlotte this weekend at the Bank, which now, like I mentioned, sees us go 14 unbeaten for the crown. Electric night. Like I mentioned, all week I felt like the conversation was about scoring, right? We need our wingers, we need our strikers to score, and we saw some goals this weekend, didn't we, Sean?
Yeah, dude. When you start watching the beginning of that game, you're sitting there and you're like, this is gonna be another one where we'd have to watch 2 halves with 1 goal at home and really hope it's ours. And that changed quickly. Right around like the 35th, 36th minute, I forget where it was. It just energy and goals. It's fun to watch. For sure.
Yeah, I think slightly different from you. I like the energy that the team started off with. We were kind of on them from the get-go. Diani, to me, man, what a player he is. I mean, I think it was the first 10 minutes. Vargas had a shot from his pass. The goalie blocked it, won the ball back, got it to Scott Arfield, who took another shot, So, I mean, I really like the intensity that the team started off with. One of the things that, we asked for, I think it was 2 episodes ago, was, we need goal productions from our wingers. It was great seeing Kerwin Vargas get on the score sheet. I think he needed that, a little bit of boost of confidence for him. Enzo had a decent game as well, I think. I mean, obviously people are going to ask for the goals, right? And so overall, for us to be able to get to score, the other team to tie Toronto, then score again, then they tie again, then score again. I mean, I think it's important, right? The home games, to me, we have to win, right? And a team like Toronto, without Insigne, right, with Bernardeschi playing as a wing back, right? Everything was there. The recipe was there for us to win, and we pulled the dub, right, Brian?
Yeah, and I think the big thing was also responding to the 1-0 loss in New England.
Right.
I think before last episode, we also had talked about just needing to pick up the points against the teams that we should be beating and competing with and getting points from. And so that was what this stretch really indicated. And if it ended up 2-2, this would have been a really disappointing stretch.
Yeah.
So finding that late goal, I think, also was huge. I mean, Liel Abada looks like real class at this point. The only qualm I have is he's not getting enough touches. I don't feel like he was involved enough in the first half. And as soon as he started getting involved in the second half, I mean, it was lightning, right? I mean, that first drive he has with the ball, dribbles through everybody, draws the foul, which almost was his own goal before they called it back. And then he also had, his goal, just picking the pocket of the pass and just driving it right in, and his finishing is class, which is what was missing.
Yep.
Right? So I think shout out to Vaughn. Also, he called this out during the week that it seemed like the team, based on the video footage, they were shooting, focusing on ground shots. You saw 2 of those this last week. So shout out to Vaughn on calling that out as well. So they really looked like they were focused on finishing, hitting shots lower, not skying it. We saw 2 goals in that realm. I do feel like they still were missing some chance creation.
Yep.
One of our subscribers asked that question, so I'm sure we'll also dive deeper into that later. But I think there was some stretches. They started off really strong. First half also got a little chippy back and forth. They kind of lost a little bit of the momentum. They got it back towards the end with that finish from Vargas. And then Toronto did have some stretches, especially in the second half, where they looked pretty dangerous. Bernardeschi especially, he just showed his class.
Dude, he almost scored again on us. I feel like, listen, if there's a chance to get Bernardeschi to Charlotte, do it, because he's at home here anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
He loves scoring or having opportunities to score on us.
Yeah, and even though he didn't score, he was involved in both of their goals. And this for me was, it was the toughest assignment Urunen might have all season, but I feel like it was also the poorest game I've seen from him so far. Bernardeschi had him beat at least 5 or 6 times, and just that, he was just torching that left side, which actually, after the second goal, if you saw, Abada was switched to the left side, and they switched it up for that last 10 minutes. I would imagine just to try to get DP versus DP over there, just to see if maybe you can punish him in behind as he continues to push forward. They eventually led to the third goal, and just in terms of Liel Abada being able to push forward on the counter and get the ball late. So, I think I was also a little bit from Dean just in terms of tactical adjustments, trying to figure out a solution when the defense wasn't being as compact as they had been in weeks past. That was another big thing. I think this was just the toughest stretch we saw from the defensive back line in terms of Toronto had a lot of chance. I feel like they did have a decent amount of chances and decent looks. And it's interesting that this is the week that Charlotte didn't have as clean a looks, and then they get all of their goals. Whereas in the weeks past, they had some really clean looks, PKs at home, 1v1s, and they didn't get any goals. So I think there's a little bit of luck on Charlotte's side as well. But you make your own luck. So
yeah, for sure. One of the things that stood out to me as well, in terms of chance creation, we also saw, Scott Arfield get the nod over Breck de Jager.
Yeah.
He came in and assisted, which is great. But to me, that's a little bit of a red flag from Dean Smith, where he's saying, hey, I got to find a guy that's that connector in that final third, right?
One of the questions I had written down just to run by you guys was just, do you think Arfield keeps that spot? Did he play well enough in that game to hold that momentum right there?
Not for me. I think Dean's continuing to struggle to find who can get enough touches in that position. I don't think when Petkovic was out there, he didn't get enough touches. Arfield, 60 minutes, he didn't get enough touches on the ball. De Jager seems like he gets a decent amount of opportunities, but I don't know if
it seemed like him and Enzo were playing they would rotate back and forth too, where Enzo would kind of come down and try to be that creation guy as well, but it wasn't working with him either.
Yeah, I don't think Dean has the solution there yet. I think that's just going to be a constant rotation until you can kind of figure out what clicks, or if they can just continue to scrap through and get points until the summer window kind of opens up. Obviously the winter window technically for MLS is still open for another week, but the options are way way more optimal in the summer. So,
and that's why I think it's a positive to see, Brecht actually get an assist, right? I mean, like at the end of the day also, like, I mean, he was brought in to play that more of the advanced 8, that 10 role as well. Like we need, like he's on over 1 million, right? So I mean, this is a guy that has to produce for us, right? And to be fair, he's got a goal and 2 assists now, right? I think so. I mean, but yeah, you could definitely tell from going, like you said, Petkovic to Scott Arfield to Brecht that Dean's quite not comfortable with their play, with what he has right there in that position. What he is comfortable, though, with, and which I love, is that partnership between Ashley Westwood and Djibril Diani. I mean, that, to me, I guess we'll get into it as well, because, I mean, I've seen some impact already from guys like Liel Abada, who's come in 3 games, scored a goal already. I mean, you see it, like the burst of speed, the dribbling, the ability to find good spaces. I mean, reading the game is important too, because his goal came from a mistake from the Toronto defense, right? And finishing, right? Which is something that we like cry about for the last couple of weeks. And it's important getting him, like, we need a sort of talisman player. And from what I'm seeing from him, like, I want him to become that talisman player for us, because we need that, somebody that we can rely on to score the goals for us. And you know what? I loved the first goal that kind of got called back from him. Right foot shot, goalie blocks it, left foot shot goes in. I'm like, okay, great. He can shoot with both of his. And then that goal gets taken away. Then he scores again and takes off his shirt and, kind of like Jude Bellingham-esque, like, yo, I'm here, I've arrived. And I love that. It was like, to me, it was also more like of a frustration letting out, like, you're not going to deny me today, So from him, I've seen that. I mean, from Djibril Diani, I mean, the guy is just an amazing player. It reminds me when Malanda first came in, like, the difference in quality you see just go up, The passes that he can give, how much he can cover, how calm he looks as well. Like, he's not a guy that I see get flustered too often. So my question to you guys is, to me, these guys are going to be early contenders for player of the season for Charlotte FC, right? So who do you see kind of being more impactful or more important for Charlotte? Do you see it being Diani, or do you see it being Abada?
I feel like I have to. I mean, I think it's the easier answer, but I think I have to go with Liel Abada, just because, I mean, at the end of the day, he was brought in for goals and assists, like Zoran said, and that's what is clearly has been up until this point. This last game was clearly missing. Even when Diani was getting his starts, we still were talking about lack of progressive passing.
That's a good point.
Right, the creativity wasn't quite there. So while he has clearly brought some technical quality into that midfield, and I think he also helps open things up for Ashley as well, so he can create. And so it's a great partnership there, like you said. But I just feel like there's still something missing, because really when it comes to a midfield, especially in the modern game, you really need 3 to 4. You just need a numerical advantage. And so even if it's a partnership there, you got to have that third player to kind of really can take control of games regularly, and I think that's still missing. Whereas with Liel Abada, like, at this point, I think his impact will just be, I mean, that he needs to come in and replace what Carroll left, which was 12 and 5, and I think that's really the minimum for what Liel Abada should, the expectation for what he should bring. And if he brings that, I mean, we're talking about a completely different end result in terms of what this team will be at the end of the season.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it becomes more important too, given the fact that, we've struggled to score. I mean, he's already one of the joint top scorers with his 1 goal.
I didn't even think about that.
Wait. Patrick Ajiman's got something to say about that. He's calling in right now.
He actually scored 2, so he's 1 away from being a joint top goal scorer already.
I mean, he's going to be dangerous, man. I mean, if you watch the Westwood ball over the top to him, that game was just perfect 2 or 3 different times, and just led him right into an attack. And that's what we brought Westwood in, was for that Westwood ball over the top. It wasn't to Abada, but now it is. And he showed that he can do it, and he can do it well. I think it's going to lead to a lot of goals this year.
Yeah, I mean, the explosiveness of him, I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, we haven't seen a player like this in Charlotte, so
confident, dude. So confident.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can do. But yeah, any anything that you could shout out about Diani that would make you believe that maybe he could be that player of the season for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they,
because I think we're all in agreement with Abada.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think for what he can, what he has already brought, it's a small sample size, but what he's already brought in terms of just at times their possessional control seems solid. I think the issue is just they haven't their possession hasn't been consistent enough. So I think if we start to see them really take control of games for longer stretches of time, where they're like not only just on the counter and conceding possession, but they're actually really controlling games, especially at home. Like if there's a lot of games where they like take that lead, they go up 1-0 early, which it looks like that's really one of Dean Smith's motives. You see them coming out hot for like 10 or 15 minutes a lot of times, especially at home. If they get that early lead, do they just control the rest of the game? And it's just like, okay, it's a lock. Like it's done. Like the game's over. You're up 1-0 and it's not even a question. I think that's when you see really good midfields stand out, is when it's like, okay, they got the lead. Like you were hoping to catch them on a counter, and that was your one chance of the game, and you didn't get it, and you're down 1-0. And I think that's for Charlotte. Like if they can do that, if they can just control a game, go up 1-0 at home, and just really just take over, and it comes from possessional control, and that's Diani and Westwood. I think if that happens more often, then you're looking at a completely different midfield pairing, and I think he then would be the player of the game, because it doesn't matter then about the goals, right? Because then you're just always in control of the game.
For sure.
His calmness and just ability to be on the ball without panicking. I mean, we had one of those last year, but we didn't have two guys that were able to just play that midfield so flawlessly. No. And he has so far this season played flawless. No. Like find a time where the middle of the field was exposed super badly. We haven't really had that, at least at home. And so if he can continue to do that, he's going that rock there in the middle, like forcing teams to the outside every time. Now we've made them predictable. Yeah. And him providing that quality leads us to having great defense. It makes it so much easier on our back four.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, and we saw this weekend also, I just remembered this to touch on a little bit on Chaloma. You know, he had to step in for Malanda, and unfortunately, you know, he was involved in, you know, the goal that was kept onside by Prince, right? Mm-hmm. And then the goal that was disallowed for Liel Abada. So, but on the positive, the long ball he shot that Enzo won for Kerwin, right? He was part of that. But, you know, our fan base is not a forgiving fan base, you know? So they were ready to torch this man after that game. So
yeah, I mean, people haven't forgotten his own goal against St. Louis last year. And since that own goal, it's really been like it's been an uphill battle for him. I honestly don't think he, like, personally, like, he performed that poorly.
I thought he was decent.
I mean, part of it is just you got to tip your hat to Bernadeschi. I mean, it's hard to stop that man, and Urunen couldn't on the left. And, I mean, there's not only so much Tuiloma's going to do from the right center back position when the left back is getting cooked.
Right.
And, you know, Bernadeschi's doing what he's doing. You're pulling everybody out of position, and they're getting chances. Yes, on the first one, he left him on side. I mean, I definitely think, for me, I know there's a lot of controversy around the foul. I do think it could have easily been called a foul on the Liel Abada goal. I mean, it looked like he was going up toward.
It's like a play that you see every game.
No,
though.
for sure,
you know?
for sure,
I mean, it's
no.
like picking and choosing at that point.
But I wouldn't count that against him in terms of like, oh, that's the play that makes it a bad performance.
Yeah, but
maybe
unfortunately, a player that's already under pressure. It's like Enzo, a player that's already under pressure.
Yeah.
If he's missing 1v1, that takes it to another level, right? We're like, oh, you see, I told you this guy couldn't score goals. I told you this guy couldn't defend.
Exactly.
Well, and he's filling the shoes of the guy who's been our best player.
Yeah, which is even worse, you know.
Yeah.
You're asking the most of a guy who's already got pressure on him, and it's just not a great situation to be put in.
Yeah. I do think what he showed is that at least they have, and we've talked about this before, at least we have some depth in that center back position, which I think was a concern going into this season. It was like, how does the center back position look? I mean, we talked about left center back being the position of need, and I don't think we're even really concerned about center back at all right now. And I think part of that is Tuiloma being able to fill in a starting spot when needed. Obviously, Malanda and Privet are locked down as the pairing, but you have an option and you can still find a way to get a win at home if Tuiloma comes in for a start. And I think that's all you really, at this point, that's what you need.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to be, like you said, I don't think we're going to be depending on him week in and week out, right? So if he can come in and do a job, that's really what we need right now.
Since Lee's not here, I'll say it. Privet.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about this unbeaten stretch at home, 14. I mean, it's very, very important to me for us, right? In MLS, right? Win your home games, pull a couple points. In away games, and you're set. And I think, we're really building a fortress at the bank. And Patrick Agyemang said this after in the media scrum. He was like, we want to make this a very difficult place for people to come in and play. Obviously the fans do their jobs, and they're doing their jobs as well. I think last year Lattanzio said that, players might have felt like a little bit overpressured, right, to perform better in front of the fans. And I feel like this year we were able, I guess the team is able to more, figure out how to internalize that and bring a positive out of it.
Do you feel like the team feels, last year we had all these expectations, we had all these issues at the beginning of the year. This year, not as many expectations, not as many issues at the beginning of the field, maybe a lot lighter on their feet, a lot lighter to go into these games.
I think that comes more from like Dean Smith,
yes.
Players are playing, they're not intricate system, right? It's more, hey, simple play, which is 1. 2, Lattanzio was a coach that needed to prove himself. Dean Smith, he's good, he's like, okay, this is what I have to work with right now. All right, we'll make it work. Okay, I don't have a star DP. I still need 3 to 4 players we'll make work with what we have. So I mean, when you're battling, when you're with teams battling relegation, in the Prem, coming to MLS and saying, hey, we can, we still don't have all our pieces and we just have to finish in the top 9, we'll be all right,
Yeah, I think the other thing that Dean's done, especially at home, and this is overall with the roster, we've talked about this before, just in terms of he kind of has established, this is my team, this is the starters, this is the reserve, this is what it takes to compete and then earn a spot back. You see that in a couple positions, between Agyemang and Capetti. You see that between, in the 10 role, you see kind of or even in the winger positions between Tavares and Vargas. You kind of see, these opportunities for them to compete, also know their role, fill it, and come in, and I think that's a big part of just they know what they're doing when they need to do it, because I think one thing that was missing last year was they didn't seem to have the energy out of the gate always, and this year it seems like that has changed. They haven't always found the goal, but it really seems like there's a 10 or 15 minute stretch right out of the gate.
Here we go,
where they just really hammer on the opposition. I do want to, ideally, they can start to really make that into 35, 45, the full game, really. I mean, I think long term, that's at home, teams should feel really, really uncomfortable. I don't like when a substitute, change at striker. I didn't really know who Prince Awosu was. And he had a brace. And I feel like that happens at the bank a little bit too often, where it's Caleb Wiley had a brace last year. How could the academy kid has a brace, And so things like that kind of come
stars
up.
Are born for other teams.
Right. And so I think that is a concern for me, in terms of it's okay. If Bernadeschi shows out, he's going to show out, right? He can play anywhere. He's not intimidated by Charlotte. But when sort of these no name or just younger academy kids or just young prospects, they should be quaking, right? They should come in and be oh, I don't like playing here. I'm uncomfortable. Sort of I guess that's just an environment that has to build over time. But I think that's what seems to happen in the beginning stretches, and then they kind of fill themselves out. So how do they turn that into just it's 90 minutes of just hell, right? You just come into Charlotte and it's 90 minutes. You just don't want to play here anymore.
I think a little bit more that'll come with depth too. I mean, we've got a lot of really good talent on the team, but I don't know if we have enough talent to high press for a whole game right now and be able to fill that talent when they're tired.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
And also, I think another thing that Dean's added is he understanding the emotionality of his group, and I think that's very important because he mentioned that in the press conference where he's I felt that the team was a little down going into this game and kind of had to remind them, hey guys, we started off well. We're a good team, kind of picking these guys back up on a Corwin Vargas who could be, like he mentioned, emotional at times. He's hey, I need you to play with more personality, right? So, I mean, it's understanding stuff like that as well that I think is very important for the overall health of where the team is at and where they could potentially go, Brian, how long do you think this home stretch can last of unbeaten. I mean, we've got Minnesota next, Portland, Nashville, LA Galaxy, Philly. That's just the next 5.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all at home winnable games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Galaxy and Philadelphia are tough, but they've beaten Philly before. When Philly was, 2022, Philly was an unreal Philadelphia Union, and they beat them 4-0 that year. So, obviously, at home, regardless of the opponent at this point, they all should be considered winnable games.
Yeah.
LA Galaxy are tough. They're looking like their attack is looking sick. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. Yeah, man. Paintsel, Puig, Jovic, Peck, on and on. Fagundes is a bench winger. Like, what the You're right. So, like, it's unreal in LA. But I'd say, all of them are winnable games. And this is a really important stretch. So, 7 of their next 11 games are at home.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like the cash in third of the season. They really got to get points. So like if there's a time for this home streak to continue, it's right now. Because the final stretch, the final 15 games, only 6 of them are at home. So this is the time to get points and pick up a lot of those points. And the majority of them are gonna be at home. So not only is should they try to really, obviously they're gonna try to keep this home streak going, but this is an important stretch for that home streak to continue because this is the money section of the season. This third 7 of 11 at home. That's important to get those points.
Yeah, just adding on to that, it's like a positive thing to build off of where the players know that it's difficult. Other teams are starting to come. Like this is the 3rd season now where you're like, okay, well, like anytime we go to Charlotte, it's gonna be a tough match. Right. So I think that added value that we bring as the fan base, there's very few stadiums I can think of in MLS where I'm like, okay, that's going to be a tough place to go. Right. Yeah. And Charlotte, regardless of whether we're good or not, last season, like you mentioned, is there any way we can get Rios to come play during the Philly game? He scored again against them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's important, having that strong foundation at home. And like Brian said, the more points we can pull out of those next 7 home games, it's going to be, we're going to need that cushion because there will be a time where, we're not getting the results.
If we're healthy, it's going to be tough to score on us at home. And I think that we've got a couple great offenses coming in here. LA and Miami will be the 2 games I think will be the biggest tests. I think we can weather the Philadelphia Storm. I'm not saying winning. I'm saying we're not getting scored on. But I think that one of those 2 games is going to be really tough for us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Moving on. After a win, it's always exciting. Unfortunately, and we're going to touch on this a little bit, on what's going on with the Charlotte FC supporters, right? Obviously, Saturday night, there was an incident between 2 of the Charlotte FC supporters groups, Blue Furia and Carolina Hooligans, that left the president of Blue Furia, Julie, with like a bloody face. She had to be hospitalized. Sunday, Blue Furia released a statement in which they mentioned that their president was assaulted by members of the Carolina Hooligans. Later on in that day, Carolina Hooligans released a statement as well, mentioning that the story wasn't being portrayed the way it actually happened, and released a video of, I guess, what would be the post-altercation of it. Today, I think Carol posted the CMPD's police incident report. They classified it as a simple assault, and in it mentioned on Saturday, April 14th, 2024, at approximately 10:30, CMPD officers were dispatched to the 600 block of South Cedar Street in reference to a physical assault call for service. The listed victim was assaulted by 5 unknown females. First and foremost, anytime that things end up in violence is not a good thing, right? Like, that should be condemned, right? It's very tough to see stuff like this happen within your own supporters groups. Obviously this is something that's been brewing between these 2 supporter groups for a while, right? But at the end of the day, the council is called the royal family, right? So we're supposed to try to build community, not divide, right? Sean, you've been a part of the council before. Talk to us about what a situation like this, what are maybe some of the next steps that have to be taken? Because the reality right now is, we have to let the investigation happen. We have to see what truly happened, because a group is saying this and another group is saying that, right? And so, the one big no-no for me that really has to be taken into account is what happened to Julie Wright in terms of what is the actions post that, right? Because some of those pictures were very horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it's from the council standpoint, what they're going to do is, I'm sure it's already happened. Shout out to all the council group leaders that have been pulled into this. I know that your phone blew up all night that night and all the next day. I hate that for you. But what they're going to do is they're have a meeting probably today where they're going to go over both sides of a chance to talk. And really, it's going to come down to footage because the he said, she said thing's not going to work there. The team and the rest of the council members are going to want truth. They're going to want to know exactly what really happened and then proceed with punishments. I mean, I can see this being a situation where both sides got in a fight. Both sides are going to get punished. But if it's truly a 5v1, as the report states, then I can see a lot more punishment being put down. It's a voted on thing. It's did not happen on stadium grounds, so the team can't really have a ton of say in it.
Okay.
From what I understand.
So that was my next question. Okay.
Yeah. But the team can also say, like, you guys represent us.
Yeah.
Therefore, like, you can't tailgate on our lot. They could hand down their own punishment on the side. But mostly, if I were the team, and in situations we've seen in the past, like, it should be handled by the council and that group and that royal family. They're going to talk with each other. They're going to vote. And, we'll see which way it goes.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because, these are two supporters groups for Charlotte FC. It's not like Charlotte versus somebody else, right? Yeah. It's within their own organization, which sucks at the end of the day. And I've seen people online saying, hey, we should just ban both supporter groups. And I'm like, to me, that's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to, like, you can't blame everybody for the actions of a few, right? And plus, the supporter groups, in my mind, are the lifeblood of the team. You've got the fans, and the supporters group really take that to the next level with participating in tifos, chanting, trying to bring an atmosphere to the team. And none of these people get paid unless they gave you some money on the low, Sean. Dude, my understanding is it's not.
I lost money. Yeah, no, there's no money on the low there. There's a lot of time and effort put in by all those groups and just those leaders. It's constant. It's a 24/7 job on top of whatever normal job you have. They'll find the way to get to the bottom of it. They'll find the truth, and when that truth comes out, they'll lay out appropriate punishments. There's good people in that group that will figure out the right way to handle it. Right now, I hate that anyone got hurt. So I hope everyone gets better. I hope there's no long-term injuries that come out of that. And I also hope that, like, it is an individual. So to single out full groups or to single out, I hate it. I always hated it in the past when for Blue Furia, when one member would do something and the whole group got blamed. Yeah. Personally, I was always super against. I'd be like, hey man, like it's a one-off, or that guy was an ass, not the whole group. And it's just like the situation. I hope they can see in the way that people have seen in the past, where it's like this person did not behave appropriately. It does not mean the whole group's going to not behave appropriately.
Has there been an instance to this severity where someone actually gets hurt like this in the past for Charlotte FC?
Not between two groups.
Yeah, Brian, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we've talked about a lot of the positive aspects of what supporters groups provide as a fan base to the team. And I think what ends up happening in an incident like this is it's one incident that kind of can overshadow all the positivity that comes from supporters groups.
Right.
And so that, I think, is one thing to really keep in mind for all the leaders of those supporters groups and just members of those supporters groups that, it's important to be responsible members.
Yeah.
In terms of just because, like, one of the tweets that really stood out to me was this guy was like, see, this is why I don't want to sign up for a supporters group. Right? And so that impact can be negative in terms of not just because of this incident itself, but people who are on the fence about whether or not to go that extra mile and be a member of supporters groups. They might be like, I don't want to deal with this. This seems like a lot of drama. And it's because the positivity has a way harder time to get advertised, whereas the negative incident, there's a police filing, there's all this stuff that happens, right? And so that's something else to just keep in mind. Is like, there's a responsibility there in terms of, like, because when the negative events happen, they get way more press, they get way more 100%. Coverage than all the positive events, and they overshadow that. And there's a lot of people out there who are who want to, are thinking about joining supporters groups or being involved and are considering it, and like you're going to lose new members and new like fans who want to like see that positive aspect of it, because they just don't want to deal with this, because I mean it gets over amplified. So I think that's one of the big thing. And then one last thing is just as they go through the meetings and everything like this, there's obviously, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of speculation, but fights don't just happen out of like, oh, they're just not going to, people just don't fight on the off chance to decide to fight. There was something likely triggering that was underneath the surface. So how do you look back and try to, stop that from happening? They stop, qualm it before it gets to the point where it's like
each one of these groups brings their own individual just personality to these games and to these pre-games and post-games and stuff like that, and not everyone's going to always get along, right? Everyone has different opinions on how things should be done. But I encourage everyone to just wait and judge once everything comes out. I think that's just the best way to do it right now. I hate that anyone's put in the situation, but I think the best thing to do here is just hold tight. We've got great investigative journalists. Top in true crime. But
Top in true crime.
No, it'll come out, and and if someone did something wrong, they'll be punished. They've got rules.
That's the number one thing I want. Like, okay, whatever, like, because to me, in all fairness, Blue Furia has a right to feel the way that they feel about. I mean, their president got attacked, and from Carolina Hooligans, they have a right to stand up for what they believed happened as well, right? Now, once that truth come out, then we'll really know who is, telling the truth and who is kind of trying to paint a narrative as well, right?
You're going to always have your boys' backs.
Yeah, for sure.
Or your girls. But it's at the end of the day. Like,
it's just sad that it comes to stuff like this, especially with, the number one thing that we always talked about was the supporters group, the fan base, the passion that we bring, right? And, an incident like that just makes everybody look bad.
It's definitely not a good look.
Yeah.
That council, I feel for those guys because they're dealing with a lot now.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean,
on top of their regular responsibilities too.
Well, also, that's part of why you have a council for situations like this as well, right? Where you have to you have to be impartial till you have all the evidence. And once you have the evidence, the proper actions will be taken, right? Because Blue Furia says they have the evidence, and Carolina Hooligans also say they have evidence. So let this play out. Let's see what actually happens, and the punishment should be to the degree of the offense.
Yeah, totally agree.
Nice. Awesome. With that said, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Minnesota United this weekend. Obviously, it's a Sunday game, right? So the first Sunday game, we're playing a Western Conference team who's also 7th. They've got 2 baller Hondurans on their side in Arriaga and Joseph Rosales. There you go. They've had a case too with their DP. People were complaining that Swiderski wanted to leave. Their DP actually dipped.
Ray No Show is the nickname he's been getting.
That's fantastic.
It is Ray No Show. Brian, talk to me a little bit about what you see heading into this Minnesota game.
Well, I mean, they still do have some other talented attackers. Obviously, Reynoso was such a, he's the string puller of that entire team. So not having there is a huge, huge loss. On top of all the other, they had a coach, then they let the coach go before the season, so he didn't even coach a game, I don't think. And then they have a new guy who came in as from Man U, so they have, they got that worked out. They're still actually in decent shape with all of those factors in mind. I think if all this stuff was happening in Charlotte, the Charlotte fan base would just be really up in arms about the circus that it seems like is happening in Minnesota, to be honest. So the fact that they're performing this well, so that's what it feels like. This kind of Minnesota seems like they're going through 2022 Charlotte FC, to be honest. But they're performing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Minnesota's the team that still can go and pull a result. They went. Obviously, Orlando hasn't started the greatest, but they went in and got a result there as well, right? So it's a team that I would be cautious about, right? We can't just take things for granted, right? They only have that one win away, right? So they've still struggled away. Yeah. But at the same time, it's a team that we need to be able to put away, right?
Oh, they started the season super hot. I don't think they lost in their first 4, right?
Really unexpected with everything that was happening.
And then they beat LA, which tough team to beat right now.
Yep.
So, I mean, 2-0 too. And I think I looked at the stats earlier. They dominated in most aspects of the game at home. Away, they have struggled. And I think even in that Orlando game, there's a red card.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. So it's like, we should, if we can play the quality we've played in the past, if Milanda's back there in the back, please. If we can get to our, I mean, I would love to see the full team out there. And if that full team's out there, I challenge anyone to come in here and try to win.
Yeah, I think one of the key matchups is going to be Longwane, their left winger, versus Charlotte FC's right back, whoever it is, whether it's Lindsay or Byrne. I think that's going to be a key matchup right there. Because for me, Bunge Longwane is like a really, really class player. Obviously, Timo Pukki as well. He's a good, obviously talented player, Premier League player. So they do still have talent all across. But I think like man for man, like the Charlotte FC matches up well against them. So they should be, this is one of those winnable home games where it's just like you got to get 3 points because there's the tougher stretches later on in the season.
It is. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have back-to-back wins yet this season. No. Right? So people were asking me, they're like, why do you think we're going to lose this week? And I was like, because every time we do a pod, they come from 2 L's. Yeah. Or they come from a win, draw, and then loss, win, draw, loss. And we broke that with a dub. So hopefully we get another W this weekend,
When I was flicking through your story, I was like, man, you just predicted us to lose? And then I got to the end of it when you were like, because we did a podcast. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, it only makes sense. And then the first thing that I saw on the Full-Time Thoughts was a screenshot of me saying we were going to win. I was like, there's the top bin curse for
there it
you.
Is. Yeah.
Oh, man. But, yeah, so Minnesota, like we mentioned, it's a winnable game. But let's talk about the next 5, that stretch that Charlotte has. You've got Minnesota at home. You've got New York away. You've got Portland at home. You've got Nashville at home. And you've got Chicago away. Right? Out of those next 5, what do you guys are predicting in terms of points?
Well, right out of the gate, I think home games are wins, right? You got to look for 3 points at all those home games. So I think a 9-point stretch is really like what the minimum should be. I think you can get away with 7 or 8. Like that's like the low minimum. But like if you start pushing like 5, 6, then you're like, that would be a really tough outcome. So I think 7 or 8, low minimum. Really, it should be 9. And then if you can get, those road matchups are winnable as well. Chicago and New York, both winnable games. So, Charlotte haven't lost to New York yet in their club history. So I think at this point, there's a lot more points on the board for them to pick up as well than just 9. But I think minimum 9 for me. You got to win your home games, or if you lose a home game or drop points in a home game, you got to find a way to pick some of those up on the road as well.
Yeah. What would be acceptable to you, Sean?
Acceptable? I think 9, 8. I think we're going to draw a lot in the next couple of weeks.
Really?
It's the law of averages, dude. We just haven't done it a ton this season. We have the 2, but I think we have the talent there. I just think it's going to take a couple weeks to get it all mixed in the right way. If that happens in some of these easier games, perfect. But Portland's a better team than anyone thought they were going to be this year. I forget the guy's name. They have that wonder kid up front who just finishes everything. He had one this past weekend where he just straight through just volley off the chest, ripped it. Thank you. But he's going to be tough for us to mark in the middle. And I think outside of that, at home though, we got to win. So if we take our home games, I can see us drawing in New York. I can see us drawing in Chicago. Honestly, I can see us drawing at home too.
Yeah, for me, for us to really be in a good shape, I need 10 points. Right. Yeah. That's 3 wins at home and get a draw in New York. Right. Like that's very doable for this team. Nashville doesn't look good this season.
No. Hani Mukhtar, I think the stats are like he's only had like 4 or 5 goals since last League's Cup.
That's crazy.
It's like really, really low. Like Ben Wright, one of the Nashville beat reporters, talked about that.
Even Chicago is a winnable game, but you know what? Like, it's a midweek game, so they'll come off a stretch. So if 10 points has for me, that really puts us in a really good position to finish out the season in a solid playoff spot. That's what this club talked about. Hey, we switched coaches because we weren't happy with finishing 9th. Here's the 5-game stretch for that opportunity to get comfortably in a playoff position, whether it be 5, 6, or 7, right? But get comfortable in that, right? Go into that summer window, add that baller DP that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And we're in a good stretch. I mean, that tough spell was those first 6-7 games.
Yeah.
Which to me, we came out with like a B-, C+, because at the end of the day, we're still right in the middle of it, right? So it's not like we fell off. And that's the beauty of MLS too. Like, I mean, you could just be mid for a long time and you're still in it.
Yeah, I mean, now they gotta cash in. I do think though, out of those 5 games, the one matchup that really stands out to me as being really pivotal is that home game versus Portland.
Right.
That travel is just so intense coast to coast, and so I think how Charlotte shows up in a really favorable situation.
Yeah.
Portland's, I mean,
so that makes it two out of the 3 games we're playing are Western Conference teams that have to travel here.
Yep.
And the one home game that we have to play is against a very bad Nashville right now.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, they should definitely be showing up and dominating at least large portions of specifically that Portland game, just because of the amount of travel there. They have a new coach as well, and Phil Neville. I mean, they have a baller in Evander. I love watching him play, but I mean, overall, they still do match up well, and they've
added a guy like Cabecita too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Evander was the guy I thought was a forward. I just see him scoring a bunch of goals, so assumed. But after a quick Google that I could have done beforehand, he's definitely a midfielder.
Yeah, very, very creative. Just honestly kind of has like some just street baller vibe, similar to like what I see from, I mean, obviously he's more of a central player, but like what I saw from Jadon Sancho in his younger days at Dortmund was just willing to kind of dribble around, play with it, and like have some fun. And that's the kind of player he is. I'm actually really excited to see him play.
Nice. All right. Finally, we'll get into a couple of subscriber questions real quickly. First one's from Evan. Do we think Kerwin and Abada getting goals takes pressure off of Enzo, or it adds pressure on Enzo, since he's yet the only forward that we have, our DP striker, has not scored? Sean?
Personally, I think it takes pressure off.
Really?
The goals are coming in, and so it's like not everyone's focused on the fact that he didn't win us a game. Now everyone's focused on the fact that someone else won us a game. You're not complaining when you lose most of the time, and Charlie, we complain no matter what. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of a player's confidence, like, hey, we still won. And I contributed in a way. If it wasn't a goal, an assist like this last time. And so hopefully that can help, multiply that confidence within him to get him that goal. But I think that if we're scoring goals and winning, he's not getting less confident.
Yeah, I don't know.
Winning is key. Now here's the flip side of that. So if Ajiman keeps being the one who comes in and getting the winners, because then the question keeps up was like, how is the backup strikers getting the wins, which I didn't even bring this point up earlier. I think that was a huge moment for him, missing that chance in New England.
Mentally bouncing back next week.
Bouncing back that quickly for a young player to know, the roller coaster of that, of being you could tell. I mean, Lindsay, I think, said in the post-match pressers, like, hey, Ajiman took blame for that entire game because of that miss. And so obviously he's at one of his lowest points probably this season, maybe in his professional career.
Right.
To bounce back and win the game, I think that's a moment that, we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But, if he's having those moments and Capetti isn't, I really promise to try to not talk about this but it's going to keep coming up. Dean Smith even said it's a 50-50. So how do we?
Yeah,
I think Dean Smith gives both of them confidence, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't think without that coach there, you have that turnaround.
Yep,
so.
That's true. Yeah. And then Ajiman getting the finish might also. Competition, iron sharpens iron, right? So if Ajiman's getting results. Maybe this is what really pushes Capetti to finally get there. But,
he's got to be feeling the pressure, man. 8 games, no goals yet. Yeah. The DP striker who already had kind of a target on his back from last season where people are like, yo, this guy's not good enough for us, right? Yeah. And so, and seeing a young striker in Pat getting goals, right? Coming back, having these moments of trials and tribulations and coming out in a positive, scoring a match winner, right?
Yeah.
I think he's got to be feeling the pressure,
especially when you see the amount of forwards that are scoring right now. I guess a shameless plug to my MLS fantasy show, Dropping Points, but this is something me and Blake have talked about. There's an absurd amount of goals scored from the forwards right now, and it's to be the forward that's not being involved in that is definitely tough. And there's just not that many DP strikers in the league that are here that aren't goal contributors. I don't even know. I was trying to think about it. I was like, maybe there's one that sets up the wingers and stuff. I just don't know of one that I could think of, even in recent history, where it's like, yeah, they're not here to score goals. They're here to just set up the team well. I was like, I don't know if that exists.
Yeah, plus because, I mean,
PK.
That's kind of like why, like, when we had Swiderski at the 9, to a degree, you're like, he can kind of get away without being a 20-25 goal scorer, because that's not, like, he's not an out-and-out 9. Enzo's an out-and-out 9.
Yeah.
So scoring goals is important for a player like him.
Yeah.
You know? Awesome. And then last question we have is from John, which asks, is chance creation still an issue despite scoring 3 goals? Our chances appear to come from transition opportunities or off mistakes by the opponent or winning the second ball this weekend. So you touched on it a little bit, Brian, where, you know, creating is still a big need in this team.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, my initial reaction, because I didn't get to watch the game live. I was driving through Atlanta rush hour traffic at the time.
All right,
and so I had to rewatch the game. And I was really expecting. I was like, man, I'm really excited about this. They got 3 goals. I'm really expecting to see like a complete change. And I honestly, I didn't feel like chance creation wise, I didn't really see that much of a change. The change was the finishing, which we've talked about, finishing versus creating, which is more important. Short term, the finishing got the results this week. I don't know long term if they can sustain successful results without improving the amount of chances they create. Because again, like he said in that question, I think he spelled it out really well. A lot of the chances were from 50-50s. Like, I mean, there's a Hail Mary pass from Tuiloma that Capetti got the 50-50. Yeah. And honestly, there's a reason Sean Johnson was so upset. That ball bounced twice before it got to Vargas. It was an aimless kind of, he won the 50-50 header, but a ball that bounces twice at the top of the box and isn't cleared by defense, if you're a Toronto fan, you're pretty upset about that lack of just covering that play. It was a giveaway. It was a St. Louis style goal on the Liel Abada one.
Yep.
And so I think there is definitely still some significant room for improvement and actually like having some diversity in their attack. I think a lot of it's coming still from the right. A lot of the most successful opportunities are coming from, whether it was Abada this week or Vargas in past weeks, like everything was coming from that one side, nothing really coming centrally. So I think they need to find some solutions to get more consistent results. Short term, if you get the finishes, you're going to get wins, right? If you get the goals. But, you got to have some volume there as well. They only had 11 shots. I still, like, at home, I don't know if that's quite the number you want.
Anything you want to add to that, Sean?
I wonder how many Vargas had. He had 3 before he scored. Yeah. So if he only had 11, he's creating all the opportunity. Copetti on that goal, too, you watch it, he had enough time where he, like, sat there. You see him go, nah, never mind. Like, he leans forward to go get the ball and then realizes someone else is coming and then lets Vargas take the shot. Yeah. And frankly, when I watched it, like, I watched the goal like 2 or 3 different times, like, it seemed kind of slow.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
But puck's on net, man. Like, we're finally just taking shots, and they were low, accurate shots. We weren't skying them. Yep. I do think we're going to struggle, especially on the road, without chance creation. We can only play the high pressure and make our own opportunities from defense that often. We're gonna have to pass through some teams.
For sure. Yeah. But the one benefit I do see about the Dean ball is if we're gonna be more direct, right? At least right now, right? Yeah. Chance creating is important, but it's not like where last season where we're trying to hold a lot of possession, right? And so that's the one. If it's a positive, it's that, right? And so you see, he knows it's an issue. If he's tried Pekovic, Scott Arfield, Brecht, he knows it's an issue and he's trying to find solutions till we get to that window. So for me, I think it's a unanimous decision. It's still a need, right? Yeah, but it's like Dean is like, well, how can I plug this in till we actually get a proper DP in?
Yeah, he's like, I got Capetti and I got Ajman, 2 guys who can win 50-50s. Right. Just huck it.
Yep.
Right, and it's working.
Yeah, reminds me of Honduras in 2013, where just long balls and
can Bender be the guy? Can Bender come in from injury and create up front? We saw opportunities from him last year. He would get the ball and drive it into the box, but there wasn't a lot of him passing through people.
No, see, that's my problem with him being the creator. Is like, for me, what I've seen from him so far, that's not really his game. Yeah. What his game seems to be for me is he finds space, which honestly will work with Dean Smith's style right now, because if he can find space in behind, he likes to try to find open spaces, but from what I've seen in his early career, he's not a huge combiner. Like he's not going to be making all these ticky-tack passes through the middle.
Space merchant is what Blake called him, right?
Space merchant, right? But that's what I mean. When space opens up, he finds space in behind, and he is very skillful in those situations when he sets himself up. For
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Dean to try him though. There, I mean, if he's trying Pekovic, Scott Arfield, I mean, like he's looking for solutions. So he's like, okay, maybe we can put him in there. So
if you open up spaces, we kind of now have the creative guys to do something with that. So he opens up the space. Now we can maybe get that passing going. But I think Scott Arfield's the same guy, and it wasn't working with him. So
yeah, that's the issue. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to find results. If I'm Bender, though, I'm hungry to get back out on the field.
100%.
I think that it's all about taking an opportunity, and I think there is an opportunity for him if he can get on the field, get healthy, and show out. So
nice. With that said, Sean, where can we find you if people want to look for you, bro?
So I actually got off most socials, but if you go on Instagram,
all right, don't look for him.
Don't look for me. Find me commenting on all Topbin stuff. No, if I'm on Instagram at Sean Gartley. Find me at Tailgate Lot. I'll be the guy really happy.
Nice, man. And again, congratulations. Your wedding's coming up, man. So we're excited for you.
Yeah, I'll put this out there. Best wedding hashtag comment on here. You can have my supporters ticket for the Portland game.
Oh, nice. Okay. I like it.
Yeah. And you can find
that'll be a comment on YouTube though, right?
Or YouTube, anywhere. They'll find me. The comments will find me.
All right, perfect.
Nice. And y'all can find me on Twitter at BAM! Mauer Media. You can find all my written content at Topbin90.com.
I love it. With that, I'm Jorge Gonzalez, Topbin90 on all the socials. You guys have a great night. Hopefully we're back after more Charlotte FC wins. Go!